What's good, y'all? It's Drew here, back with another collab video. So today we have a very special guest, and why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, what's good, y'all? Obviously, my name is Blazerkin, and I do some JJK content. And obviously, I'm excited to talk about what we got today, so I appreciate you having me.
Hey man, anytime. Today we're talking about Yuta, and we're talking about 15 Finger Sukuna. And we can honestly kind of get right into it. How do you think the fight would go? I know that we have the comparison between the fight that's currently going on with Sukuna. Does that affect this battle at all?
So in my opinion, it actually doesn't, but that I don't think is any antithesis towards what Yuta and Yuji and the gang are doing right now. It's more so I just think 15 Finger Sukuna is just a powerhouse in his own right. And it kind of starts off with even Yuta's own assumption where he's theorizing how much cursed energy does he have. And he talks about he has at least 2 or 3 the times of his. And that's at the bare minimum, meaning there could be at least 4 or 5 times more than that. And because of that, I think that just puts him on a different tier just from cursed energy amount, meaning that he could not only outlast them, but the fact that his physicals are stronger, even his just base stats are a little stronger, it puts him in a very, very tough spot to really compete against 15 Finger Sukuna. I would definitely say the 15 Finger Sukunas that we've seen in the series are a lot stronger than the current Sukuna that we have. Granted, they don't have the wall slash, but just from a base stats kind of perspective. So just from that information, what do you think about obviously the Sukuna they fought, and how would you relate that to 15 Finger Sukuna?
Yeah, so I guess the way that I've always seen it is we saw I think people even talked about this for a while. They were like, okay, this is how powerful Yuta is compared to Ryu, because Ryu fought Sukuna, and I ain't gonna lie, it was very, very effortless for Sukuna, right? And we know Yuta and Ryu were at least relative in terms of a fight, maybe not in terms of physical stats. So I was always thinking, okay, well, that's kind of how good Yuta would do, but then the time skip hit, and it seems like Sukuna keeps complimenting everyone on based on the time skip and how much more powerful they are. And he's like, how did they get so strong? Those last 2 chapters, I think, where Sukuna's like, oh, they're not as tough as Ryu was, which I took as the base stats, they're not as powerful.
Yeah, to kind of build up from that, in reference, he was talking about their durability. Yeah, so they don't necessarily have the durability of Ryu, which means, for example, the way he killed Ryu was through the chopping cleave where he cuts him in 3. However, I don't necessarily agree. I know a lot of the community think that they're relative, but I think the Ryu that fought against Yuta, at least the version that I saw, that Yuta was only using, he wasn't even using his true base form. Because you remember, in this clash right now, Yuta has pretty much been just in base form. He's used partial Rika, and then he uses domain expansion after. But the Ryu that he faced, at least in Sendai, the majority of when Ryu and Uro looked like they were really on top, was a Yuta that wasn't even using partial Rika, or his full manifestation. And then once he brought out full manifestation, I know it's a pretty crazy stat, but Ryu hits him once. I promise you, if you look back at the fight, he only hits him once when he brings out the ring. It's crazy, Yeah. So for me, I've always scaled that Yuta a lot higher. And then you said, you take into consideration that he's got even stronger during the post time skip. However, the issue for me is, regardless of how strong the students have got, it's still Sukuna, and specifically it's a Sukuna that has a domain, RCT, and just physically should be far, far ahead of these people. We know from now, this current Sukuna is weakened from his output, his energy reserves is down, even his brain damage is still there, that he can't do a domain, and even his RCT is a lot slower. So even if for example, the bag that Yuta has, where it's a lot more imposing with his cleave, the sky manipulation, the curse speech, yada yada yada, all of those type of stuff, I think he still lacks in terms of just physical stats to compete with that Sukuna, who's just a lot tougher. And then one thing that you said is that we know if he does the same attack that he did to Ryu, Yuta should die because he does have less durability than him, even if they are somewhat relative, which just makes it very, very difficult. And I think a lot of people need to stop, at least in me, in terms of the community, people are like, oh, this fingers. I don't think the fingers can be comparable to any other person, because at the end of the day, it's still Sukuna. It's the same way how I feel about the versions of Gojo. Yes, you could say maybe they're stronger on the base stats level, but it's still Gojo who has an infinity, and it's it's a little bit different for me to compare them to the others, if you get me.
I wouldn't say Yuta was holding back, kind of what you were saying, but Yuta's whole kit, his whole bag wasn't really unleashed against Ryu. That is a good point, because I think people will look at, obviously, 15 Finger Sukuna is weaker than 20 Finger Sukuna. I think Gege did this on purpose with the chapter where it's okay, well, everyone up until now would have thought that the 15 Finger Sukuna that was fighting back in the day when he first took over Megami's body was way weaker than the Sukuna we're seeing now. But it seems like they're kind of close. Even the point of Sukuna beat Mahoraga.
To build up on what you said about the Mahoraga, because I think a lot of people, at least my interpretation of the fight was, I always saw that fight as a low diff as well, because for the simple fact that we know how Sukuna is when he's fighting other people, he likes to test their abilities.
Yeah, exactly.
And people use the idea that he brought out a domain expansion to say it was a hard fight. But aside from the anime tax, which made Mahoraga look a lot better, I don't think that's necessarily the case, because just because he used a domain expansion is more so his abilities led to that fault, rather than it was Sukuna who couldn't have killed him from the jump. So I think like putting that into perspective, as well as even the fact that we see right now, and just for the simple fact that his physical stats are just, it's just like, it's Sukuna, you know, it's unfortunate. Exactly. And I think people are gonna take this as a way that we're downplaying Yuta, and I don't agree at all. Yuta's performance against this Sukuna is phenomenal, and the reason that they're in this situation is because of Yuta and the students. But similarly, their objectives are a little different. They're trying to save Megumi. Sukuna has just done poster gauntlet, as well as, you know, their whole mindset is they're fighting in a group. It's not just Yuta, it's Yuta, Rika, and Yuji, as well as now Maki has joined as well. So I think now we like isolate that, where we saw a weakened Sukuna in terms of his curse technique output and potentially movement speed was reduced, fighting against both Yuji and Maki pretty effortlessly. It kind of puts into perspective that even with the time skip that we assume people like Yuji got stronger, maybe Maki didn't get stronger, and Yuta definitely got stronger. Yeah. It just doesn't scale them to the level of being able to fight Sukuna, which unfortunately, I know people aren't going to be happy, but I just don't see it going anyway. I don't think it's going to go like Ryu, but like it goes closer to a Ryu than it goes to anything else.
This is my thing, right? Mahoraga lost to 15-finger Sukuna. So by that aspect, he has to be weaker than 15-finger Sukuna. Even though Gojo wasn't fighting Mahoraga one-on-one, by the scaling, Gojo should be relative to 20-finger Sukuna. Off the scaling, Gojo should have been able to easily get rid of Mahoraga, like even during the fight, but he wasn't able to.
Don't you think part of the reason why Mahoraga wasn't dying was because it was controlled by Sukuna? Because we know from, like, for example, Gojo's perspective, he believes that red is enough to kill Mahoraga. But it was more so of Sukuna maneuvering Mahoraga to make sure he doesn't get cooked by Gojo, because at that moment of time, his Wincon was using Mahoraga to adapt his curse technique. Like, do you see it going the exact same way if it was like a 1v1 situation? Or do you think like Sukuna's kind of influence is what make Mahoraga look a little better?
Was it just he was kind of like moving Mahoraga like a chess piece, or do you think it was like he made him stronger?
I think both, because we know that, for example, his curse energy is being given to that version of Mahoraga, which isn't the same as the one that Megumi used. So that's just going to be like a natural buff, like we saw with the new way that he summoned before, as well as like the chess piece type of stuff. Because I remember, I think it was the one where he first hits his black flash, and you remember he shoots the red into the ground, and then Sukuna like uses the bunny rabbits to keep Mahoraga safe just in time after he knocks him out. So I think because of that, and specifically how he used Sukuna, and then after he's summoning Agito, it's more so of Sukuna using him like a chess piece and just being stronger by proxy of being used by Sukuna.
Looking at a Yuta and 15-finger Sukuna fight, how do you think it's going to go?
I think it really depends on his bag, if he can actually be able to land significant stuff before Sukuna kills him. Because just from a base-to-base perspective, he's very outmatched, specifically if we look at from what we've seen in the series for 15 Sukuna. He was able to perception blitz Ryu before you could even say his attack lane. And I don't necessarily agree that these Yuta and stuff, speed has drastically improved. You could say that they have definitely got faster, but I don't think it's to an extent where it's so like significant that the speed gap would be different to what we saw against him in the Sendai colony. So even though his curse energy reinforcement probably is much better, his entire bag is much better. His curse techniques, yes, sky manipulation, all of those could be very useful. And he does have Rika being a 2v1. But like, it's just, yeah, man, it's tough.
I think we always kind of peeped that Sukuna was going to win, but let's size Yuta to the most that we possibly can. So let's say Yuta's like 25% less curse energy than Sukuna. So he has Angel's curse technique, he has Sukuna's. What is the potential win con for 15-finger Sukuna?
People are gonna hate me, but there is none. I'll be so real, like when it comes to Sukuna, it's just, yeah, it's a long day, man. Because like realistically, yeah, we know from like confirmation, verbatim this chapter, he needs to use what he did to Ryu to kill him. That means if Sukuna ever lands a cleave with his full output, Yuta's dead before he can do anything. So it's not like a situation where he can heal in time to stop the attack. And if you have a potential where the one person can one shot, and we know Sukuna's durability is ridiculous from what we've seen in the series, I don't think even Yuta, bar his domain expansion, which he wouldn't win because he's a worse domain user than Sukuna, has any option to win. Like, and I know somebody's going to probably bring up the statement from Yuji, where Yuji said, "Oh, if Sukuna takes over, I know you can do it." But if anyone can generally tell me that, yeah, he's just talking out. Does anyone can tell me generally that Yuji knows Sukuna's full abilities when us as the audience don't even know it? Come on, man. Yeah, he would have told them all everything. He would have been like, that doesn't make sense.
And Yuta's my good man, so people talking about you gonna die on Valentine's Day, that's gonna be tough.
Oh, talking about that, I know, very random. But do you think he's dead? Because I don't think so.
I
don't think so. Do you think he's dead?
I guess my argument, if I would give you one, is kind of like, okay, well, if Yuta's dead, so it's you mean tell me Yuji, Maki, and clearly Hakari's struggling. Oh my god. So a weakened Hakari if he wins that fight.
Whoa, what do you mean struggling? What do you mean struggling?
Bro, he got it, bro. I ain't gonna cry. It's frying me right now, bro. Because where are you at, bro? Come on.
Listen, no, you're doing
that's
the
my
One
man
Piece
too.
chapter scaling.
We gotta talk about it, man.
You're doing the One Piece chapter scaling. You're doing the One Piece chapter. Don't fall victim. Listen. After defense Zoro and Hakari, come on, man.
I'm not saying like the Hakari fight is not taking a while in terms of in the story. Like maybe it might be 10 minutes, but I guess the whole thing is like everything that's going on. Can you please hurry up? Also, the world-ending slash. I know it's a slash, but besides the fact that it can cut through space, isn't it just a really, really powerful slash? Or am I like tweaking?
So that's what I used to think, but someone else explained it to me because he said basically he's a geek, bro. He was breaking down all the anime logic. He's like, if it's spatial or okay, sorry, I'm not gonna do the voice, but he's basically saying if it's like space or whatever, like if they're cutting through space, it should ignore all durability because they're cutting a concept that is beyond even the user.
So he should be dead then.
So potentially, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't think he's dead, but we'll see in it. Like I can't say no. Give it to him. We can do it.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite character that's left in the series for sure.
That's your favorite character?
They got rid of Gojo, man. That man Gojo, you something special, man.
Hey, Sukuna and Gojo are my favorites.
You good.
Yeah, I'm chilling.
That's funny. Okay, so we know Yuta loses, but let's have one last special thing we can talk about. Yuta, and let's throw in Yuji. How does that fight go?
Listen, if you want to know my perspective,
what's your
15 fingers Sukuna runs through the verse. I know, to be fair, there's a lot of people who think Yuta's win, and I would love to hear their opinion why.
Yeah.
If you think there's something that we haven't said that is obviously inconsistent, let us know, because I just think from what I've seen from Sukuna, and the fact that he's also Sukuna, it makes it very hard for me to put anybody else above him that isn't named Gojo.
I guess we were talking about 15-finger Sukuna, not Mekuna, right? It's funny because I think a fight with Makuna versus 15-finger Sukuna is a different fight. I don't know if you think his stats are different.
I think his stats are the same, but it's more so just the abilities are different. If you get me.
I was gonna say the ability. So I think that just means Makuna's just better though.
It depends. It depends who you're talking about. I think Makuna can definitely be better. Actually, I'd probably agree. It probably is better. But it's more so, it depends who you're against, right? Because what we saw in the Gojo fight, if you're using 10 shadows, he can't use his innate technique as well. Because you remember in the Gojo fight, the minute he started using 10 shadows from the beginning, he had to commit to that because he wanted to adapt to then fight the Infinity. But he couldn't like switch back to his other ones because, you know, he has to pause the adaptation and everything. So I guess for the rest of us, having Mahoraga and him just fight everybody is pretty OD. So obviously his domain is open. So like the minute, it doesn't matter how many people, as long as they're in that effective range, they're all just cut. Which is unfortunate.
Even like a battle, okay, 15-finger Sukuna, he's fighting Hakari, Maki, Yuta, Yuji. Is there a win call for that? Like anything?
He has to be in the same situation we're in now. Like he has to have face Gojo for like 12, 13 chapters. He has to have low output, low curse energy, and then they generally have a great chance of winning. That would be the only. But it has to be a very weakened Sukuna. Because we know from even a Sukuna that just has its output, but everything else the same, he's able to go 2v1 with Maki and Yuji. Obviously, Maki didn't use her soul soul, so she wasn't necessarily going her full power. But we know Sukuna wasn't either. Like, that was their best option. And even then, it was pretty calm for him, so it's unfortunate.
If you disagree with us overall, you think that there's a 15-finger Sukuna that can lose to this amalgamation of students, what's the win con? What do y'all think in the comments?
What about yourself? Do you have a win con for the students as well before we kind of sign up?
So I know we saw the three-way domain clash. I think it's only because their domains were kind of equal, but I guess like my question would be like if it's a Hakari, Yuta, and then Sukuna domain expansion all at the same time, can he just do his domain again?
Yeah, he can. We already know he can do his domain.
Okay, so I think it's good.
So even if we give them the 1% chance, because we know he's not going to be as refined as Sukuna's, but let's say like they managed to get to that situation, he can just open domain straight after, which is unfortunate for them. It's just unfortunate.
I don't know. In my head, I just seen the 15-finger Sukuna as way weaker than he is. I guess just looking at like his whole kit.
Mm-hmm. His kit is definitely weaker. If you put in perspective of like not having the wall slash, like you have an attack that cuts through the wall, so definitely. But the fact that he still has Cleave and Dismantle before that, and I think maybe Cleave and Dismantle has lost its rep a little because of Gojo, because you know he couldn't use it against Gojo. But like, yeah, that's still an attack that is still pretty much like we know from Ryu, he just needs to touch him. My man's head was gone, so
You know how nasty Gege is low-key for making Sukuna have every person's weakness? Because normally, Maki would be a crazy hard counter, at least to someone who's like a domain, because she can walk into domains, right?
Yeah.
She can choose if she's affected by it. That's hard. But Sukuna, I think Sukuna probably is one of the few domains that affects inanimate objects. It affects everything.
Objects, yep. From the one
so
we know, it's the only one. Yeah, the only one we know from right now.
It's actually very disgusting. But I know someone in the comments will have an argument. This, you know how it is. Someone will have an argument. I want to hear it.
And I put your cape on. Save the Jujutsu Society. Tell us why they win.
The little Ichigo meme, save Soul Society. Like, someone do it.
Save Soul Society.
Blazy, do you have any videos you want to queue up or any views you got in the works right now?
Just tap in. If you like JJK videos, just tap in. I'll just leave it like that.
Blazy's channel will be in the description. Obviously, you know how it is. Appreciate you, honestly. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's all from us. So, peace.
Peace.